Hello and welcome to GCSE English Unlocked. Today we're going to give you 10 key quotations for English Literature Paper 1. So this paper is coming up imminently. It's on the 11th of May, which is this Monday coming.
It's a week today, folks.
So
OMG.
Not very far in the distance at all, but we're going to give you 10 quotes, 5 from Romeo and Juliet and 5 from A Christmas Carol. That are pretty flexible and you should be able to use at least a few of them.
And guys, I would be grabbing a pen, have paper and, make notes about the stuff we're saying, because these are workable quotes. We guarantee you that whatever question comes up for Romeo and Juliet and whatever question comes up for Christmas Carol, you'll be able to use some of these quotes. So literally you are making the notes that you are going to write about in a week's time. So this is so worth it.
And pause the video to make notes as well. Don't just let it play through and feel, oh, I can't keep up with this. Use the pause button. That can be really helpful as well. So our first quote today is star-crossed lovers and death-marked love. So this is a 2-for-1 quote. These are both from the prologue and they're spoken by the chorus. So they're right at the beginning of the play. Remember, the prologue is just a little bit that tells us everything that happens in the play and what's to come. And Romeo and Juliet are described as star-crossed lovers and their love is described as death-marked.
So I would be zooming in on that phrase star-crossed. So stars have connotations of fate. So their lives, they're fated to cross paths. They're fated to be together and there's nothing they can do about that. They can't fight against it. No actions they can do can stop it. However, that also means that their love is death-marked. So I'd be zooming in on death-marked because that shows that they are equally fated to die at the end. And Shakespeare's letting us know that to create dramatic irony. Go from this.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, if you wanted to do some zooming in on words, you could say this word's marked. It's as if they're kind of tagged, or marked is quite a verb that suggests like permanence, maybe I would say. That this is indelible, it's not something they can escape. From the very beginning, they have a target on their backs, and that target is death. And actually death looms as a kind of sinister presence throughout the whole play. It's always there sitting in the background, even in the romantic moments. And you'll see as you go through, there's constant references to love and death.
And if you wanted something to say a bit contextually for your AO3 marks, and this is something we're going to say a lot now, this will be the first time, is it introduces the theme of tragedy. So a tragic hero has their life controlled by fate. So Shakespeare is making it very clear to us right now that both Romeo and Juliet are tragic heroes, and this is the first point in the play where this is made clear.
Okay, lovely. So really nice short one. Star-crossed lovers, death-marked love. So that's 6 words for those two, and that's 2 quotes in one. You could learn these in 10 minutes. Do you think so? All of the quotes we're going to show you today,
so, yeah,
by
easily.
doing look, cover, right check, and you'll actually
Easily.
know some of them already. Okay, another old favourite. This is Romeo in his very annoying stage. He's quite annoying throughout the play, some might argue, but he's being super annoying. He says, "Oh, brawling love, oh, loving hate." This is in Act 1, Scene 1, so it's very early on in the play. This is when Romeo is in love with Rosaline. We never meet Rosaline as a character, but she is the woman who Romeo is infatuated with. Infatuated being the operative word, probably not in love with.
Good word, miss, infatuation. Yeah,
this is infatuation, which means like a lustful obsession, I would say. For me, I would pick out that verb brawling. So it's not usually something we would link to love. To me, brawling connotes something chaotic. That love is chaotic, it's all over the place, it's frenetic, it's dangerous. Because a brawl seems messier than, say, the verb fighting. Tybalt fights, I would say, with his passado and his dance-like steps, but brawling suggests unregulated chaos, and that is what Verona is at the moment. It's unregulated, it's out of control.
I think that word brawling also foreshadows quite a lot, doesn't it? Because it foreshadows, whether we want to call it a brawl or a fight, it foreshadows Act 3, Scene 1 and Tybalt's and Mercutio's death, which is arguably the peripeteia, the turning point for Romeo and Juliet.
That is some
love.
fancy stuff, sir.
So
just carry on.
So a peripeteia is a point in a tragic hero's trajectory where things cease to be positive in their journey and it starts to take a downward spiral. And often it's an action which they can't go backwards from. So arguably Romeo killing Tybalt is his moment of peripeteia, because after that he can't undo the actions that's going to lead to his and Juliet's inevitable death at the end. I feel another nice thing about this quotation is Romeo speaking in oxymorons, and that allows him to be mirrored really nicely with Juliet. So when Juliet finds out about Tybalt's death, she echoes this sort of oxymoronic way of talking, and she's calling Romeo a dove-feathered
raven,
a wolfish ravening lamb. Did ever serpent keep so fair a cave?
Dragon keeps a fair and no, yeah, it was ever dragon keeps a fair cave, and then what's the serpent? Oh, it's the serpent heart hid with a flowering face.
There we go. Good job, Miss knows her quotations. But it allows us to see how Romeo and Juliet's talk mirrors each other, which really builds on the fact that they are star-crossed lovers, that they are made for each other. And finally, it introduces two of the most important themes of the play, which is conflict and love. So if either of those two questions come up, I'd be reaching for this quote.
And one last grade 9 tip for methods is that you could call this chiasmus. So chiasmus is like flipping a phrase round. So we've got brawling love and then loving hate. So it's like putting up a mirror between the phrase brawling love and loving hate. Although it's not quite the same, brawling and hate are slightly different words. And again, it just shows how close love and hate are in the play and how they're always intertwined. Okay,
there we go. Chiasmus. Every day's a school day, guys.
Yeah, and that's spelled, I think, CHIASMUS, and it just means flip over or mirror. Right, our next one. I just love this quote because it's so easy to learn, and it is so flexible. Literally, you can learn this in like 3 seconds. 4 words, guys. Juliet is the sun. So the first thing I'd say about this one is it shows how all-encompassing the love is. Most candidates are going to say about this quote, this shows Romeo really loves Juliet, she's really important to him, etc, etc, but we're going to give you some better things to say. So first of all, you could talk about your celestial bodies. So that means sun, moon, stars. Remember how much the Elizabethans, how much faith and belief they had in astrology. So celestial bodies are really important. But also, if you think about the sun, it's life-giving. It literally keeps the world alive. So if we're to put it in like a cheesy modern way, Romeo might do an Instagram post and put, Juliet is my world.
And, you know, it's a new day for Romeo as well. He's had this gloomy, depressing obsession, infatuation for Rosaline. And suddenly it's like the sun's risen on a new day, this new beginning for him when he sees Juliet. So there's definite connotations of new beginning here. What I'd say if I really want to start pushing the grades 7, 8s and 9s, however, is this metaphor shows how Romeo is worshipping Juliet. Now that initially marks him out as a Petrarchan lover, because Petrarchan lovers worship the object of their love. More importantly, it shows Romeo is a tragic hero because what he's doing here is he's breaking the chain of being. He is elevating Juliet out of her place and he's putting her almost right at the top of this chain of being.
Could you just remind them, so in case they don't know just very quickly, what is
so the Elizabethans would have believed that God had set a natural order, and it's almost like a hierarchy, and God's at the top. Things like the sun, celestial bodies come underneath that. Then you get kings, noble people, men coming above women, and you're meant to stick with your place in that chain. God's decreed that that's where you fit in. And if you try to better yourself, if you try and position yourself higher than you are, you're going against God's will. So Romeo is taking Juliet out of her place and he's slotting her back in higher up. And we could argue that's his hubris in doing that.
Very nice.
He is so sort of blinded by his love that he feels almost arrogant enough that these things, the chain of being, doesn't apply to him anymore. And he can elevate Juliet. And that's why he's going to be punished as a tragic hero later on.
Very nice. Our next one is kind of linked to this one, I'd say. These violent delights have violent ends. So this is in Act 2, Scene 6. And Friar Lawrence says this just before the marriage to Romeo and Juliet. What Friar Lawrence means here is that things that are extremely pleasurable and sort of almost dangerously pleasurable can end badly, or might not always end well. Romeo and Juliet don't listen to this advice, obviously, and it does end well. So the friar's prediction is correct. Again, it maybe adds an element of frustration because he is ultimately the mediator between the two, and he allows this to go ahead. He thinks that the alliance may happy prove, he says, to turn the household's rancour, their anger, to pure love. But I think, sir, you had some comments about how this fits for some of the other characters as well in the play, and how it's a bigger statement about, Verona.
So, I mean, first of all, what we are seeing in this quote again is dramatic irony, because we know that their love is going to have a violent end, and it's so frustrating because Friar Lawrence recognises it here, and it mirrors so many other characters, Romeo, Juliet, who keep having bad premonitions and then keep acting anyway. So, Juliet says, "I have no joy in this contract. It's too rash, too late, like lightning." Miss, I think you remember the one Romeo says before he goes to the ball.
He says, "My mind misgives some consequence yet hanging in the stars." So he feels like something bad. It's sinister. It's creepy. Something bad is like waiting to like drop on him almost. This idea of a consequence hanging in the stars, that they're going to like drop a can of white paint over him. That something bad is lurking, and like I said, death is lurking everywhere in the play. Violence is lurking. The Romeo just ignores that, and he's like, "Sail on," or something like that. He just cracks on and he goes in. Yeah.
But it brings it back to that idea of fate being in control. So all these characters cannot stop the fate which is guiding Romeo and Juliet towards their love, towards their death, no matter what they try to do. Again, we're talking about oxymorons here. So this is the two contrasting ideas of love and violence.
Yeah, and we've got, it's similar if you have a look, brawling love. We've got love and hate incredibly close together.
And finally, I think it it demonstrates that Romeo and perhaps Juliet's hamartia, their fatal flaw, is impulsivity, because they're essentially this impulsive, violent, sudden love is destined for this violent end. And Friar Lawrence is recognising the impulsivity here, but ironically being very impulsive himself in going ahead and marrying them despite recognising the danger.
Poor Romeo and Juliet, it sounds like they never stood a chance.
I don't they do stand, well, they don't miss, because they're tragic heroes.
Okay, our last one, this again, guys, 3 words, it just gets better and better. And also I really do think a lot of candidates won't write about this, because it's like, sort of lurking at the end of the play. And the prince is sometimes a neglected character, I think, but actually he says quite a lot about Verona society. So he says all are punished, and that's in Act 5, Scene 3.
Now, Miss, I like saying this to my Year 7s when I keep them all back at lunchtime because one of them's been naughty. I keep them back, and then I say very majestically, "All are punished!" And they look at me and blink. Absolutely, like you guys probably are right now.
So remember, the prince is ultimately in control of Verona. He's the guy that has a massive go at them at the start, and he calls them rebellious subjects, enemies to peace. And he says that your lives will pay the forfeit of the peace if they carry on fighting in the streets. And although actually in the play he doesn't sentence anyone to death directly, a lot of them, their lives do pay the forfeit of the peace, and ultimately all are punished. It's another warning that the characters don't listen to, and it closes off the play in a sort of tragic, very grave, solemn, serious way, I would say.
It does. I think this is a really useful quote to enable us to talk about author intention. So it's so important that when you write, you're saying, why is Shakespeare having these characters act this way? Why is he making the characters do this, do that? What is his message to his audience? And the prince is what we call an ancillary character. It's a sort of secondary, they're not the protagonist or the antagonist. And Shakespeare likes to use ancillary characters as mouthpieces for his message. So, you know, by Shakespeare saying this at the end, you can say he's talking directly to his audience. And whatever you want to say his message is he punishing Romeo and Juliet for trying to go against a patriarchal society? Is he punishing their families for trying to enforce a patriarchal society? Is Shakespeare's message to, you know, the young people watching that they should try and break free from the pressure society places upon them? Is he saying to them they should knuckle down and do as they're told? Whatever you want to argue, you can say that Shakespeare's trying to really warn us through this line at the end. So it's a really nice line to tag on to talk about author intention.
Use those critical verbs: warn, challenge, criticise, promote, elevate, tear down. I think we've got to be really careful with Shakespeare. We might sort of talk about him as like a feminist icon, saying he's sort of smashing the patriarchy, but I don't think we can be that blunt, can we?
I would personally, I mean, this, yeah, I would argue, I would sit on the fence. I would be saying, on the one hand, Shakespeare could perhaps be trying to use Romeo and Juliet to argue against a patriarchal society, and he's showing, you know, the consequences that will happen to your children if you try and force that upon them. On the other hand, Shakespeare could perhaps be warning people that they need to do as they're told, and if they don't, they'll die miserably in a vault, swallowing poison and stabbing themselves. So, yeah, it's all about these modal verbs. Could, perhaps.
And so, just on that note of the killings and poisonings and things, this is a tragedy, right? It's appallingly sad and bleak. Is it a thoroughly pessimistic play, do you think? Pessimistic means it's very negative and looks on like the negative side of humanity.
Well, again, I guess this is looking both sides. This is could perhaps be pessimistic on the other hand. I mean, on the one hand, we have a 13-year-old and a not much older person falling in love, and 5 days later, is it 5 people have died?
Yeah.
On the other hand, this could be a story of the power of conquering love. You know, these are our two themes: conflict and violence, or love. So it's up to you to decide which one of those
with
two.
the new dawn for the ancient grudge.
It does.
Okay, right. Shall we move on to Christmas Carol?
Let's move on to Christmas Carol.
Let's pause it.